Today we're going to talk about how we multiply decimal numbers. Now remember, a decimal number is really a fraction with a denominator that is always a power of 10. So when we multiply decimal numbers, we should be thinking back to how we multiply fractions. So when I see 0.6, I think of that as 6 over 10. And when I see 0.7, that really, since the 7's in the 10 spots, that is really 7/10. And if you remember, when we multiply or divide fractions, we don't need a common denominator. We just multiply the tops and we multiply the bottoms together. Now, the only difference with decimals is with a fraction, we would try to divide out before we multiply. With decimals, we want to keep the denominator as a power of 10. So we're going to leave the denominators and we're not going to divide anything out. We are just going to go ahead and multiply. So we multiply the top numbers together and we get 42. When we multiply the bottom numbers together, 10 times 10, we get 100. Now, since there's two zeros in the bottom, if we're going to write this as a decimal, right now with 42, the decimal is right here. We move the decimal point over twice, once for each zero. So we are going to get, for an answer, 0.42. Let's take a look at a second question here. With this question, 1.6, since there's one digit after the decimal, 1.6 really means 16 tenths. And 0.07, since the 7 is in the 100 spots, really means 7 100ths. So when I multiply this, really I have to multiply the top together. When I'm multiplying powers of 10, I know that that's really 1,000, which means I'm going to have to move my decimal point 3 times. Now, if you notice, I have to move my decimal point 3 times when I get my answer. There are 3 digits after the decimal right now. And that's the way it's always going to be. If we just take a look at the original question and count the digits that are after the decimal point, then we know how many places we have to move our decimal in our final answer. So really what I'm going to do is I'm going to go 16 times 7. I'm going to figure out that answer. So 7 times 6 is 42, so that's 2, and I'm carrying 4. 7 times 1 is 7, plus 4 is 11. So 7 times 16 is 112. Now my decimal would be right here, but I have to move it 3 spaces. 1, 2, 3. So my answer would be 0.112, or 112 1,000ths. So if I'm looking at a question such as this one, again, I'm not going to, I think of 0.25 as 25 over 100, and I think of 0.302 as 302 over 1,000. But what that means is when I multiply 100 times 1,000, I'm going to get 100,000. Or there's going to be 5 zeros. So I'm going to have to move my decimal point 5 places because I'm dividing by 100,000. So when I do my multiplication, I don't worry about the decimal points when I do the original multiplication. I just do the original multiplication. So the way I wrote it, we're going to do it this way. 2 times 5 is 0. Carry 1 is 10, so carry the 1, 10. 2 times 2 is 4, plus the 1 is 5. The next one, 0, 0, 0, because they're all zeros. Now I need 2 zeros, and when I multiply by 3, I'm going to get 3 times 5 is 15. I'm carrying 1. 3 times 2 is 6, so 7. So I get 7, 5, 5, 0. There's my answer, which again is reasonable. If I'm taking 300 times 25, that sounds reasonable. Now right now my decimal point's here. I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 digits after the decimal. So I'm going to move my decimal 5 places. So sorry, since there's 5 places, 5 digits after the decimal, I'm going to move this decimal point 5 places. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I've run out of places. What I do is I include a 0 then. So I put it there and I put a 0 beforehand. So my answer is 0, decimal 0, 7, 5, 5. Now, what's tricky there is it only looks like there's 4 digits after the decimal. But if you remember, in our original answer was 7,550. So there was one more digit there. And that's why it's a little tricky to talk about number of digits after the decimal. Instead, what I would encourage you to do is multiply the numbers together and then move our decimal point the appropriate number of places.